Hello, dear friends. When reporting a crime is considered the same as committing a crime, the world is upside down. Castellón Confidencial has also had its alternative channel shut down. Opinion piece: creative chaos, inner war, awakening, turbulence, wave of love, positive disorder, turbulent transition, unstoppable process. Peace starts in the mind. Everything is upside down. Let's start. The process of emerging from the darkness is neither orderly nor beautiful, but rather manifests as chaos, conflicts, and visible crises in the world, according to Steve Biko. The apparent global chaos is actually part of a process of social transformation that leads to a better world. What many people interpret as global disorder is actually part of a planned transformation process. This process shouldn't come as a surprise, because the transition will necessarily be tumultuous. The author compares it to a military strategy called time on target, with multiple events occurring simultaneously to generate a cumulative impact. Therefore, the increase in problems, scandals, and tensions is not a sign of deterioration, but rather the exposure of corrupt structures. As we move toward higher planes, nothing with low vibrations can survive. The population is being forced to become aware. The more confusing and complicated the situation seems, the closer we are to the end of this stage. As White Cloud said, everything will be turned upside down even more, because it is the means to end the darkness that plagues the planet. All of this is designed to unite the world against the dark side and illuminate it. According to Elisa Ayres, the turbulence will intensify, especially for those bound to low energies, disconnected from reality, with bodies full of toxins, parasites, drugs, and alcohol, and those who haven't done the arduous inner work, or who haven't yet healed their traumas and karmic contracts. Elevation. Steve Biko describes the ascension process as an elevation to higher states, where injustice can no longer be sustained. The ultimate goal would be a world based on truth, love, and greater awareness. Therefore, a smooth transition is not expected, as the current chaos is necessary to dismantle the old and allow something new to emerge. The author interprets the current political chaos as part of a strategy to accelerate the collapse of darkness and force a global reorganization. He divides the process into three phases: covert, arrests, and replacements, the elimination of other dark side actors during lockdown, and the future wave of love that will expel the remaining evil. He concludes by saying that the increase in chaos would be a sign that the mass physical ascension is near, and asks if anyone expected it to happen any other way. The more chaotic the situation becomes, the closer we are to the event. Once it begins, things will start to improve immediately. As Matthew said, just as the caterpillar must dissolve before wings can form, so the world must go through revelation before the embodiment of a higher state becomes possible. Tide. There is a tide in the affairs of men, which, taken at its peak, leads to fortune, said Shakespeare. Why? Because chance doesn't rule this universe. Divine design does. I know there is purpose and design in life, says Steve Biko. This design envisions that we all journey from God through world of matter matter, where we remember our true divine identity and return once more to the source, to our immortal divine essence. Just as there can be a tide in the affairs of individuals, there is also now a tide in the affairs of the people of Earth that will lead to fortune seized at the opportune moment. Linda Dillon and many others have called it the Great Awakening from ignorance, lethargy, and self-centeredness in everyday life. From the confusion of the end of times, a golden age will emerge. Ismael Perez mentioned this very thing, in quotes, from white hat operations to galactic prophecies, DNA activation, and the next solar flare. This is where truth seekers, stasists, and sovereignists unite. According to Ismael Perez, the coalition is carrying out operations to dismantle the dark side, operations in plural, and prepare a transition to a new positive international order. He also predicts that the draconian structure associated with the cabal will disappear around 2027. This process would mark a transition from defensive operations to a phase of planetary mentorship. He interprets the current conflict as a covert operation rather than a crisis between states, as part of a deeper struggle for control. Therefore, we are entering a new stage of global reorganization. Internal war. The angles explain that all external wars are a reflection of the internal wars that human beings wage against themselves and against others. According to Anne Albers, choosing peace within oneself is the first step toward peace on Earth. Mother Earth feels the pain of every attack, criticism, or conflict, whether global or personal, and responds by releasing tension through storms or natural movements, not as a punishment, but as an attempt to balance and heal. The message invites us to honor the Earth by ceasing to participate in these petty wars, self-criticism, condemnation of others, arguments, or resistance to life. Instead of fighting against what you don't want, it is advisable to focus on what you love and want to create. According to the angles, world peace begins in each mind and heart. Every act of love, acceptance, or empathy brings a frequency of peace to the planet. Thus, ending everyday wars awakens the energy of major world conflicts. Unstoppable. The Earth is passing through the photon belt of the star Alcyone, which raises the planet's frequency and awakens humanity from its spiritual slumber, according to Celia Wilder. This transformation marks the beginning of the transition to a galactic society, in which human beings will recognize their true divine nature. In her view, the structures of control are collapsing, and repressed truths will come to light, including advanced technologies such as zero-point energy, teleportation, time travel, and medical beds. The flow of truth, consciousness, and cosmic energy that is driving humanity's great awakening can no longer be contained. Wisdom. Kat Carroll argues that humanity has lost its inner wisdom and its connection to the transcendent, replacing them with materialism, technology, and information overload. He proposes that traditions such as Hermeticism, Theosophy, Anthroposophy, and Taoism share a common intuition. The human being is a microcosm linked to a living and conscious universe. Although we have more information today than ever before, We have forgotten the habit of looking inward and upward. Authentic wisdom must be remembered, lived and felt, not just studied. Carroll compares ancient and modern esoteric currents to argue that true wisdom is not only intellectual, but also experiential and spiritual. He presents Hermeticism, the Tao Te Ching, and Gnosis as different paths toward the same understanding of reality. He also highlights architectural symbols such as obelisks, pyramids, and cathedral spires as visual metaphors for spiritual elevation, structures that point upward and invite us to contemplate the eternal. Breaking news. US does not rule, leaving NATO. Trump says the war against Iran could end in 2 or 3 weeks. Trump says he will leave the Strait of Hormuz in the hands of other countries. Trump reveals that Iran has asked him for a ceasefire, and Tehran denies it. Iran is willing to end the war if it receives guarantees. Iran launches its largest missile attack against Israel since the conflict began. Economy. Stock markets rise and oil falls. Gold records its worst month as central banks reduce their reserves. The Northern Sea route is experiencing unprecedented growth. Jet fuel prices surge amid tensions. The Justice Department paid General Flynn $1.2 million to settle his lawsuit over the malicious prosecution that destroyed his career. Europe. Conflict in the Middle East drives gas prices in the EU up to 59%. Germany receives its first gas shipments from Oman. The UK convenes 35 countries for a virtual meeting on Thursday regarding the Strait of Hormuz. The European countries most exposed to the energy shock are Germany, Italy, the UK, Poland, Belgium, and Romania. The Paris catacombs will reopen in 2026 after a security overhaul. Spain. Housing prices rose 14.3% in the first quarter. Tourist arrivals grew by 2.8% in February, and spending increased by 4.6%. Americas. Spain eliminates the expedited residency process for Venezuelan immigrants. The fourth ship carrying humanitarian aid from Mexico arrives in Cuba. Argentina declares the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist organization. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.